The latest Destiny drama is a bit of a weird one. So, the entire upcoming dungeon loot pool has been released early, including all weapon rolls. I won't be showing any of that in this video. Not by data miners this time though, this time it was from Bungie themselves. So how did this happen? Before DLC releases, Bungie invites content creators to their studio for a capture event. This typically includes showing off the first campaign missions, some of the upcoming gear and exotics, and the new activity. This isn't the first time this has happened, nor is it typically a problem. It's just a way to advertise upcoming content and get some last minute feedback. However, this time it's gone a bit further than that. As I've said, every dungeon weapon, including its perk pool, and the dungeon exotic is public knowledge. This hasn't happened before, and in my opinion, it shouldn't. A key part of Destiny is the endgame, and the mystery and surprise of what can be obtained from it. This DLC will be without a raid, but in its place a dungeon, offering more than any other dungeon before it. How do I know it offers more though? It's because I've watched the videos on it. But before we dive into this further and look at some community reaction, and what I think should have happened here, there's a few things what should probably be addressed. So, content creators posting this information. Are they to blame for this? Absolutely not. Let's be real. If you was given the information at an event which was specifically made to advertise, of course you're going to make a video on the weapons. If they didn't do this, it would honestly be worse. At that point, it's just gatekeeping information to themselves, which could give an advantage in day ones maybe. I mean, maybe that's a stretch, but you kind of get where I'm coming from. Blaming the creators here is not really the way to go. I know it sounds a bit rich coming from someone who is, at least, a smaller content creator. This was a decision made by Bungie. It could maybe be a good one, but I just don't think it is. Also, I do understand that making this, it's going to be quite hard to not come across as bitter about not being invited or anything kind of along those lines, but as I've said, not the creator's fault here at all. If I was given this information, I'd make a video too, it just is what it is. So then, the problems. Importantly, people who want to avoid spoilers. Hey bro, just don't watch a video bro, just close your eyes, ain't even real bro. These are the kind of comments you see, and I mean, it does work, I guess, to a degree. So, an example video on the dungeon weapons was posted by Cool Guy. This is one I have personally watched. It is very, very clear this video is about the weapons in the dungeon. There's no clickbait, there's no deception. If you didn't want to know anything about the dungeon weapons, it would be very easy to avoid this. It's a pretty good video too. But the responses on Twitter are not great. You can see the public sentiment is heavily towards this should not be known about by anybody, player base or content creators, until the dungeon releases. This is my opinion on this subject too. And I mean, just not watching these videos is fine and everything, but it does go further than that. Anyone who is bothered about this enough to care at all, it's safe to say is at least somewhat invested in Destiny and its community. If you use any kind of social networking like Twitter or Discord, you could easily come across someone posting screenshots of these weapons and being like, oh guys, you know this new dungeon dual-edged lightsaber can roll both Zorpal weapon and fire escape perk? This is going to be insane on Strand Titan. These are the situations you are less in control of avoiding. Unless you want to go full monk mode and live in the mountains for a few weeks, but nobody does that, or is even expected to do that. And having everything spoiled about an upcoming endgame event, which, by the way, we only get 2 of these a year now, really fucking sucks for some people. Even when not the creator's intentions, these incidents are going to happen over and over again, which cannot be avoided once the information is out there on these weapons in the public space. Next is just the mystery. This is anecdotal and will vary from this should not happen again to who actually even cares, just depending on who you ask. But some of Destiny's allure does come from the unknown. It's questions like what gear might we be getting next? Which locations could we be visiting? Will Bungie one day realise we want aspects and not destination abilities? The list goes on. This mystery is what keeps people playing, or at the very least connected to the Destiny space enough but one day may return when what we have been anticipating comes into the game, and a big part of it is weapons, exotics and other equipable gear. Yeah, even the dungeon armor origin trait is public information, so there is no mystery. In fact, it's already at the point that god rolls have been theorised with all their potential synergies and intricate workings. Now this section, which is probably going to be the hardest to believe or resonate with, coming from someone who could be classed as a Destiny content creator, just not very good at it. Is it fair that some players have the opportunity to play with endgame gear before anyone else does? Does this matter at all for dungeon or raid racers? And what about the creators who didn't get invited? Again, how do I discuss this without sounding bitter? I think the easiest comparison would be the Edge of Fate capture event. This was essentially the same thing. Creators were invited out, they posted videos on the first few story missions, some of the destination gear, then at the time new feature the portal. A bit unlucky on that one. But importantly, no content from Desert Perpetual, be that raid mechanics or raid weapons. Myself or nobody either in the Destiny creator space or Destiny player space had any widespread problem with this, or the creators chosen to go. And it's not always the same creators either. Like this time, a Destiny creator Aegis Relic was invited. To my knowledge they haven't been before, and them getting the opportunity this time around is great. They are insanely knowledgeable on the game and create some of the best resources out there for weapons and DPS. I'm sure most of you are aware of the DPS spreadsheets and the in-depth videos accompanying them. It was a perfect choice from Bungie as someone who should probably be present at this kind of event. Again, no problems with any creators chosen or not, purely with what content was actually available at these events. So to answer the questions, what about creators who didn't get invited? I don't think this really matters at all, especially since recorded footage will be made public anyway. But does this matter for raid and dungeon racers? This is a tough one. Honestly, it's better everyone knowing the rewards than just a select few. And knowing just the loot is going to make pretty little to absolutely no impact on the dungeon mechanics and the race itself. If creators did get to playtest the dungeon, then it absolutely would have an impact, though I don't believe this to be the case. Is it fair that players get to try out endgame gear before anyone else? Again, it is technically better that everyone has this information rather than a select few, but in my opinion would be better if nobody had this information or the ability to test them out. Finally then, just to wrap it up, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second and give some other scenarios or reasoning. So, if Bungie themselves didn't allow this information to the public, then some leaker or data miner probably would have shortly after DLC launch. This has happened a fair few times in the past and wouldn't be a surprise at all if this happened again. Though I don't know what can be done about this, it's all very technical. Hopefully there can be a method found which can prevent this happening in the future, but it might just be an impossibility. There's also marketing. What if releasing information on the dungeon early increases the amount of players who interact with that content because there's something in there they desire? I mean, it sounds reasonable enough, right? Maybe if a dungeon weapon perks was only visible in the API after the release of a dungeon, by that point this potential player's interest has waned and they never bother with the dungeon. This could be the case. And there has to be at least some kind of justification behind them okaying the release of these weapons information early anyway, which is probably something along these lines. So then, should this happen in future DLCs? No. Hell no. No. Bungie, look, these creator events are great, but showing endgame gear is not. I don't think this is a hot take from the comments I've seen either. Just please, let's just try and avoid this, I beg. Thank you for watching.